We ready?
I'm ready. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, sir. So let's talk about the Destin Fishing Rodeo. How many people in here are entered in the rodeo? We got about half. So the other half that is not, why aren't you entered? If you haven't been here for the rodeo, this is the largest fishing tournament in the world. It's not necessarily the biggest payout tournament. That's not what we built it for. And I've been on the board of directors for 25 years. The Destin Fishing Rodeo is a family fun fishing event. Last year, we weighed more than 20,000 fish. We had 1,300, 1,600 mark fish make the leaderboard last year. We had anglers from 37 states and 13 countries. Every kid that comes to the rodeo that's 12 and under, we want to get them into fishing. So we want to make sure they win. So you bring us a fish, if you're 12 and under and you bring us a fish has to be a pound to make it to the leaderboard. I promise you, if you catch a fish, it will weigh a pound. If we have to put it in a Ziploc bag full of water and weigh it, it's going to weigh a pound. You get to win once a year. You get your picture made with Miss Destin, you get a certificate that you were in the rodeo, and you get a rod and a reel. So it's it's a great deal for kids. Come down to the we have weigh-ins every day from 10 to 7. The prime time to be down there, of course, is from 4 to 7 every year. We have divisions for, charter boats 25 and under, private boats, private 25 and under, party boats, paddle board, kayaks, surf fishing. There's 200 and something places on the leaderboard. There is something that you can go out there and catch and win. And hopefully tonight we'll give you some pointers that will help you get out there and catch the winner. Unless you want to catch the winning amberjack, and then I'm out.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I wrote normally I post our fishing report on Saturdays, and last week, because Saturday was the opening day of the rodeo, I wanted to put it out on Friday. And I put in the fishing report. I kind of stepped out there a little bit, and with where the hurricane went, the way the waters were, the way it started pushing the blue water was, for the guys that offshore fish, it was up to as far as 180 miles offshore. Well, because of that hurricane and the fact that we're actually going to have a fall this year, the blue water is already pushed all the way back to the edges. So I said in that fishing report that in almost every case, you're going to need a bigger than average fish to win. And one of my buddies on the 100 proof came in Friday with a 96-pound amberjack, and I thought, well, that's probably it. That's pretty good fish. Well, that lasted not even 24 hours till somebody Brady on the boat up brought in a 108. And the last couple of years in the 25 and under charter boat, me and Mark have won the Almaco with a 10 to 12 pound Almaco almost every year. Mark put 2 on the board on Saturday. He put an 18 and a 17 on the board. I feel those are big enough above average
on jigs
to win. So, it's going to take some really good fish to win this year in pretty much, I think, every category.
Which is awesome.
And if nothing else, this cool weather, there is no days that show anything above 85 for the rest of the month, and most days aren't going to be that. So we should have a very, very good month. The only unfortunate thing is we are going to have, because we're having a fall, we're going to have north wind, and our nickname for October is Rocktober, and I promise you it's probably going to be a little rough. Just going to have to suck it up, be tough.
We'll find out tomorrow morning how tough I am. I canceled today. It was a little bumpy yesterday, so.
Oh, come on now. So, I thought we'd start with this. Everybody says, there's this whole thing about bananas on the boat.
The whole validity of what you say after this is going downhill fast.
I couldn't tell you how many times I've taken peanut butter and jelly banana sandwiches on board. I even on Mark's boat proved that you can wear banana shorts. He bought me the banana shorts, by the way.
I saw those at Target. I was like, I have to buy these for Tim.
I would have wore them tonight, but the pockets are kind of shallow when everything falls out of your pockets. But yes, just because you got bananas on the boat doesn't mean you can't catch fish. You know, I think one of the most important things, if you can take something away from tonight, bait. Bait is key. We see it every day at the shop. People are going to come in, and they come in to get bait in the mornings, and they're like, you know, it's the rodeo. I think I'm going to take 2 boxes of cigar minnows today. Well, don't have to worry about them. You know, having frozen cigar minnows is great. But thinking that you're going to go out there with frozen bait most of the time and win, yes, you can get lucky, but you need to have quality bait and having the right bait rigs.
And a lot of times too, I mean, you guys know me and how I talk about light tackle and jigs and all my whole weird way of fishing. This is the one time of the year that I fish more traditionally, I think a lot differently. And I kind of mix, I mean, luckily those Almacos came on jigs.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. Like, I'll even handle bait differently going from the speaky rig to the live well.
You know, most of the time, I think you can get away with just the regular Hayabusa sabiki rigs. But as we start to come up on this moon, we talk about this all the time, bait is tougher to catch on the moon. You're probably going to need that time, you know, right around the moon, you'll need the fluorocarbon sabiki rigs. You don't need them for most everyday fishing, but right there around the moon, they are important. And having some larger bait rigs, whether they be the owners or whatever, you know, different brands, having some larger bait rigs that we can use around the jetties to catch hardtails and bluefish and ladyfish and things, and bait rigs that we can take out there on some of the nearshore county structure and use these to catch
Ruby red lips.
ruby reds and
even squirrelfish.
Squirrelfish for any, and so hopefully everybody knows, but have a D-hooker. You want to make sure you use a D-hooker. The less you handle the baits, the better they'll live.
I'm laughing because I just assume you're laughing the reason or shaking your head like me, because I'm so sick and tired of getting those little gold hooks in my hands. So,
but you know, typically during the summer, our main baits are cigar minnows and herring. And while I still like those, you know, this time of year, I want bigger fish. I want baits with bigger profiles. So hardtails, of course, mullet. Mullet are one of the top baits, and I'm going to come back to them in just a minute. Of course, pinfish, because they do come in larger sizes. The ruby red lips or firemouth snappers, whatever you want to call them. More ruby reds. Menhaden that you can cast net in the bay. There's a lot of big menhaden in the bay this time of year. Squirrelfish, they're super baits. Remember on vermilion snapper, vermilion or mingo snappers make great bait. You can't, even though you're going to use them for bait, you still have to abide by limits. So you can't have more than, you know, your 10 per person in the live well. They have to be of legal size. Can't throw 8-inch ones in the live well legally. They got to be that 10 inches or better. Probably one of the number one baits that almost nobody fishes with are lizard fish. Absolutely fantastic baits. And of course, herring and cigar minnows. Now I want to go back to mullet. You know, mullet this time of year, they are everywhere in the bay. Now, it does require you to learn to throw a cast net. Mark, you want to give me a hand with this table for a minute?
Yeah.
Let's just sit this right back here.
Are you going to get a volunteer for this?
Yeah.
All right. That's one of my favorite Tim demonstrations.
But learning to throw a cast net is super easy. Most people try to make this real difficult, and hopefully I won't throw the microphone off of me. But the first thing you want to do when you want to learn to throw a cast net is we need to make sure that the net is not tangled, that it's all, nice and straight. For me, I use what's called the triple load method for the cast net. This used to, the live bait boys that are out there now, well, before them, a friend of mine had the business, and he asked me to, his regular guy couldn't go with him one day, and he asked me to go, if I wanted to go catch bait that day. And I was like, sure, I'll go. We got out there on the boat, and I'm loading up the net. First thing, he's like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know, I'm gonna throw the net on those minnows right there. And he's like, you're gonna be wore out in 10 minutes. I used to have the method where I put it in my teeth and did all that mess, and he showed me how to throw a cast net. But like I say, we want to make sure that we don't have any tangles in it. I'm right-handed, so I put everything into my left hand. I bring it up, and I want the net about ankle level. I want to go straight to my left hand without twisting. I reach down, and I gather up about a third of the net. And that goes up on my left shoulder. Then I want to reach in here, and I need to get a third of the net into this hand. And you'll see people, they want to flip their wrist when they do this. I can come by the shop, we can show it to you at the shop. You can watch some videos on YouTube. If you flip your wrist, see the net doesn't come over real good. If I keep my wrist stable and only bend at the elbow, it flips over real nice and easy. And then once I get about a third of the net into this hand, I need to bring this hand up so they're close together and everything fits into this V of your hand. I'm gonna grip the net with the 3 back fingers, and I'm gonna take my thumb and forefinger out so I can grab a lead. So now I'm ready to go. I can walk around the boat, I can walk around the dock, everything's secure. This is the way to get bait. One of y'all wanna help me? Sit right there for me. Sit right there. You brave? Yeah. Yeah? This is how confident that I am. It's a perfect donut every time. And so easy to catch them. See, look at the size of the live bait I got.
We're going to need bigger hooks, Tim.
You're going to need bigger hooks? All right, buddy, we'll let you out. What's your name? Fish? All right. Archie. Good work, Archie. And the thing is, you don't have to throw most people think that you have to throw the net really hard. I have a terribly bad back. I get injections every few months. Gather up a third of the net, goes under your left arm, up onto your left shoulder. In here, a third of the net in this hand. Slide my 2 hands together, grip it with the 3 back fingers, take my thumb and forefinger out, holding lead, I'm ready to go. Most things that you see people, they think you need to spin this net to throw it. If you try to spin it, it's going to get behind you, it's going to hit you, it's not going to open. The real key here, one is to throw it parallel to the ground, not throw it up or down, and to make sure the net clears your body. So there's 3 moves. Give myself a little more room here. It's away from your body, back, and I can open it. Afterwards, we go back here in the back. I can throw this and make a perfect donut every time. This is a 10-foot net that'll make a 20-foot circle, so I can't truly throw it and open it here without throwing it into the first row of the audience. But it's if you'll learn to throw with the triple load method, You can look it up on YouTube, cast net triple load. Please make sure you type in cast net.
Oh, well, yeah, fishing.
Very important. But mullet are some of the best baits, whether you're trolling for big king mackerels. I promise you, almost every year the winning king mackerel comes off a mullet. A big amberjack, a big grouper, any of our larger species, more times than not, those fish are going to be caught on a live mullet. It's because it's one of the bigger baits that we can catch. They're relatively easy to catch, and they live really well in a live well. Ladyfish and bluefish make excellent baits, but they don't live. The charter boats have them huge live wells. They live fine for them. Most of us have smaller live wells. The ladyfish and the bluefish, you can't put very many in there because they don't have a lot of room. They just can't move around. But mullet live real well in captivity. So definitely one of the best baits you can catch.
What are the people, like, are there limits on mullet or like specs like with the mangoes, they have to be 10 inches or anything? I've never caught mullet.
So in most cases, if you get checked, the question was, do you have to abide by limits? Yes. The simple answer is yes. There is a silver mullet and a black mullet, and I should look this up and somehow figure out a way to remember it. We don't sell live mullet at the shop because when the mullet are little, there's one of the two. It's either the silver or the black mullet that you're not supposed to have, not supposed to use. But when they're little, you can't tell them apart. And none of the Marine Patrol officers here are going to write you a ticket for having finger mullet or even bigger size mullet in your live well. The only time that you would ever get a ticket for that is if you're the guy that he pulls you over and you're just an a-hole. You know, if you're like, hey sir, yeah, we got some baits and thing, you know. Vermilions are a different story. They're reef fish. They fall into a whole different category. But as far as bait, nobody's ever going to say anything to you. So what's your favorite one, Mark?
I would love to use more mullet, but normally I'm running too fast across the bay in the morning to stop and do that. But I mean, even like I know it, I've heard it from you for years, and even watching you throw the cast net now, it makes me want to go use more mullet. But it's interesting for me lately, and I don't know about some of you guys, it's been a little bit of a challenge the past couple of days catching bait.
Yeah.
Until we get out to other spots, and then there's just small hardtails everywhere.
Yep. There is going to be a lot of little bitty cigar minnows and little bitty herring around the pass, little hardtails. We're right here post spawn in the fall, so there's going to be a lot of those. You have to weed through a lot of them to catch. You know, you got to catch 10 little bitty cigar minnows before you catch one big one. But let me tell you, them little bitty cigar minnows, them little 3-inch cigar minnows, for all you guys who want to fish for mingos, that is like mingo crack.
And for me, one big thing that we've had to figure out over the last couple days, or weeks, I guess, when you drop your speaky rig, if you're dropping it in, 50, 60 feet of water, and all of a sudden, if you drop it in the water and your line's coming off your spool, and then all of a sudden it stops coming off your spool, it's because there's 6 jacks on it, tangling it up immediately. So just keep an eye on that, otherwise you're going to go through this many sabiki rigs in 5 minutes on your boat.
You know, for anybody who's wanting to catch, you know, of course, triggerfish, you know, we all catch bonitas when we're fly lining. You know, we always take our bonitas home, process them, cut them up into little chunks, salt them, freeze them, vacuum pack them just like you will your fish you're going to eat. And, you know, if you salt it, that stuff lasts forever. So make sure that you're processing some of your bonita chunks and stuff. There's even times grouper, that entire slab of bonita can be one of the best grouper baits for a big grouper that there is. Now, they will attract, of course, you got to worry about the sharks and stuff because they're bad.
I was going to say it's a great grouper head bait.
Because you will attract some sharks that way. You'll limit it'll cut down on the time that you can fish on the spot. You know, most places you can only fish on the spot right now for about 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the most. You got to move anyway. You know, you start putting bonita in the water and you're probably going to cut that more in that 10 or 15 minute time frame before you got to go.
Grouper cheeks are good.
Yeah.
Just cheap.
You know, and while we talk about big baits, don't discount live shrimp. You know, blackfin tuna fishing, you know, I know everybody's all about cigar minnows and herring, but you cut a blackfin open, you look inside of them, or even mahis, their bellies are just full of shrimp. They love live shrimp.
We made it a goal this year to catch a whole bunch of random stuff on fly rods. And initially, the first bait we went to was a cigar minnow shake. Because, I mean, king mackerel, we're catching them on cigar minnows or herring. So I wanted a big blue and white fly that were ripping through the water real fast. The first fish we caught that we cut open, and it wasn't even my idea, it was our buddy Jack. We cut him open, saw what he was eating, and every single fish, or every single thing in that fish's belly was about that big. Now, whether they were feeding in a certain level of the water, or what they were feeding on, like you said, with the tunas and shrimp and snappers and all that, we changed our fly patterns to little tiny crabs and shrimp. And that's what we started catching mahi on, were these little baby baits and tiny little hooks.
You know,
But I think the big lesson is to have a little bit of everything.
it is.
And like we always talk about, like, hey, you should try this or you should do this. But like I always say, like every morning when I go out, I have no idea what's going to happen. So somebody's like, and luckily, like you guys tell us a lot of stuff when we talk to you. And, like we get pictures of people with tarpon and things like that. But when you see somebody else who's like, yeah, I ran out of bonita and I threw a shrimp out and that worked. And then of course, first thing I'm doing on my charter the next day is getting a dozen shrimp to go with me.
But bait is by far the key. I mean, if you have the better quality bait you have, the more fish you're going to catch. And in the rodeo, that's even more important because we need bigger species because we all want to be competitive. Along that line, the next thing I want to talk about is a net. You know, it is, sometimes it's coming down to ounces between the winner, first and second and third place. When you gaff a fish and put it in the fish box, it's going to lose 10% of its weight in the first hour. So it's real important to handle the fish with care, and when possible, if you can, you know, it's real easy to beat a fish off the hook with a net, because somebody does that to my fish all the time. But
one time,
you know, it is in a tournament situation, I'll take the risk of using a net over a gaff because it will make a difference. When you're talking, you know, in especially certain species are more so than others. Tunas bleed a tremendous amount anyway. You gaff one and you need to be ready to, you know, stuff paper towels in them gaff holes or something. But netting fish can be the difference between winning and losing in this tournament. Because it's a lot of times it's going to come down to just a couple ounces.
how about that cobia story that arrived in the back of the truck?
Yep, it's a good one. Years ago, I was the weighmaster at the Hog's Breath Cobia tournament, and one of our local boats, it was the difference of, this was a big money tournament, but it was probably the difference in about $80,000 between first and second place. Well, they bring a cobia up and they have it in the back of a truck because Hog's Breath was on the other side of the street, so you couldn't come by boat. So they brought it up to the thing, and it's in the bed of a truck, and it's wrapped up in 3 beach towels, and it's got two big giant gaff holes in it. And you know, when I pick it up, put it on the scale, it's like this. I mean, this fish should have been well over 100, and the fish was, you know, in the low 90s. And about 20 minutes later, another boat shows up, and they have a cooler, these SSI coolers. It's about the size of this table. It's got a slush brine in it, and their fish is in there. Well, I go to pick it up, and instead of it being up here, it's down. I mean, it's a good 6 inches shorter fish. And their fish weighs like 102. And the other fish was bigger, but because they had the second boat had netted their fish, and it was properly iced. And when I say properly iced, that's not throwing it in the fish box and having some random ice in there. It's having ice that has a slush brine. You're going to fill that fish box completely full of ice in the morning. And then after we start throwing some fish in there, we're going to put a couple buckets of salt water in there to make a slush brine in there. And that will keep your fish much, much colder, which in turn will keep them from losing nearly as much weight.
If your hand doesn't hurt looking for fish in the bottom of that fish box, it's not cold enough.
Right. So, you know, have plenty of ice. And you know, if you're one of these people who go up here to the Jiffy Mart and buy bags of ice, you need to stop that. You know, that's air-blown ice. It does not last worth a darn. It melts super fast because it's blown ice, and it's got a lot of air in it. It just doesn't stay cold as long. If you'll pull up at Harbor Walk in the morning, they sell the big tubs of ice, and it's way cheaper than buying it at the Jiffy Mart because you're buying this great big tub of ice. I think it's $10 for the giant tub of ice. And there's a little girl that's going to come out. She'll come out to the dock and ask you what you want. And you tell her, I want 1 or 2 tubs of ice. She's going to go to the thing. She's going to shovel the ice into the tub. She's going to help you put it in the boat. Take care of the little girl. Tip the little girl.
That little girl will make that ice, that 50-gallon trash can full of ice, look really light. It's not. So just be careful taking that off the dock onto your boat, because she's a much stronger woman than me, I guess.
But that ice is chipped ice. It comes out in a great big block, and it shaves the ice, almost like Hawaiian shaved ice. It lasts much, much longer and will get colder in your fish box. But buy quality ice, and it's actually going to save you money, even if you tip the little girl, because we sell ice at the shop, and I think ice is up to about, I think it's $3.65 a bag now, and of course they've gone up on the price, and it used to be you got ice in 10 pounds and 20 pound bags. Now it comes in 7 and 15 pound bags, and it went up in price. So you can, you're going to spend a lot more money buying bags of ice. But, net your fish. It'll make a difference.
I freeze blocks of ice too, and there are a couple captains I know that use 2-liter soda bottles. Just fill those up with water and throw them leave a little room for expansion when it freezes, but those as long as you clean them off before you put them back in the freezer. Yes, sir.
So, having certain species, is it better to wait until you're at the dock and gut the fish at the dock at the weigh-in?
So the question was, should you wait till you get to the rodeo dock to gut your fish? We will send you to the back of the line. You want to wait as long as you can before you do gut them, but you need to gut them when you're in the harbor. If you pull up to the dock and your fish aren't gutted yet, the guys on the dock should send you to the back of the line. Yeah.
Sheep's head and triggerfish and shark.
Flounder and pompano, right, Mark?
Sheep's head, triggerfish, sheep's head.
Yeah. Triggers, flounder, sheephead, pompano.
And shark.
And sharks. Everything else should be gutted. Yep. But yes, so while we're on that, let's jump around to that. Let's talk about the rodeo, weighing in at the rodeo dock. So you're going to get there in the afternoon.
Well, I'm curious, how many of you guys have weighed in to fish at the rodeo? Are you sure, Mark? Have you? No, I'm kidding.
So there is a little procedure to this when you get to the rodeo dock.
It's awesome, by the way, if you haven't done it. Like, it just feels cool.
Oh,
And I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but the first year that I entered, I just wanted to pull up to the dock in my little boat. That was all I wanted to do. It was just to pull up in front of AJ's with all those people and the big leaderboard and the bleachers and Bruce. And if you don't know Bruce and you just moved here, like, it can be a little intimidating. And you learn real quick how good you are at docking a boat in front of all those people. But it's just a really cool atmosphere. So yesterday on our trip, I told the guys, and they were like, can we stay out a few more minutes and fish? I was like, or we can go weigh in this fish and get your son a fishing rod. And he was like, I was like, screw it, let's do both. So we stayed out, we tried one more spot and then went to the dock. When they got there and just saw the people, and I told the kid, and he was like 11, and I was like, grab your fish. And he's holding it up, kind of scared of it, even though it's frozen solid and stiff. And I was like, don't throw this up on the dock when we get there, tell them it's your fish, sign the paperwork, get your picture taken, get your fishing rod. But it's just a really fun atmosphere. Like, it's sometimes at the end of a long summer of fishing as much as I can, you're kind of tired and burnt out a little bit, but then you're like, hey, it's the rodeo. Like, this is fun. This is why we fish. And I feel lucky that I get to do it every day.
Oh, going to the rodeo dock is awesome.
It's fun to hang out as a spectator.
But when you do get to the dock, most of the day it's just whoever's next is up, private or charter. During the peak time between 5 and 7, the charter boats do have kind of right of way. They weigh first. There's normally someone on the dock that'll help, pointing out who's in line next. But one of the things is the rodeo dock can get very, very backed up. They try down there, to get the boats in and out as fast as they can. But we have boats all the time that will pull up and they haven't checked the leaderboards, they haven't checked the daily boards, and they get up there and they don't have anything that's going to be, weighable at all. You can go online to the DestinFishingRodeo.org, their Facebook or their website, and on the very front page there's a little thing that says winners. Actually, I can.
And while he's looking for that, it's the charter boat thing, and I'm a charter boat captain, but that's not for me. That's for the people on my boat. So if I have a husband and his 2 boys on the boat, and the wife is trying to figure out what time she needs to be back at the boat ramp with their minivan to pick everybody up or something like that. It's not about the captains, it's about getting the clients home. I think private boats kind of and is that right?
Right, yeah. So when you go to the web page, there's a winners page, and right here there's this little thing. I know it's probably real hard for y'all to see this because it's real small, but it says daily prizes, weekly prizes, and overall. Well, I can click on the daily.
Well, let's do overall.
We're going to do that too. So we go to daily.
This can be a very sad website to check too. If you're actually trying to win, and you look on it and your name's no longer on it at 7 o'clock at night every day.
So they actually did good today because we haven't had a big king mackerel.
Wow.
We get the 25-pound king today on the Unreal. Let's see, what are these 20? Oh, we had a 24-pound grouper was the daily today. A 26-pound wahoo.
11 scamp. That's pretty good.
It's close. People weigh their fish in. The tickets come off the table. Someone takes those. They go up and update the big leaderboard. As soon as they update the leaderboard, then they take those tickets into the office, and the girls in the office. It's within 15 minutes most of the time, and that is a huge blackfin.
A 28-pound blackfin.
Hook championship charters. That would have won that 28-pound blackfin today, which may or may not win this year, but that would have won any of the last 5.
We came in second last year with a 26.8 or so.
Yeah.
Say again? Is it
What's that?
mahi?
I don't think there's a mahi on the daily. Mahi's, oh,
Dolphin.
it is. 5.4 on Goofy Golf. And then,
If I still look at it, it'll probably be the only time I'm on it.
go to, and this is over, so that was the daily board. And then this is the whole, every division out there. So Mark is in the 25 and under charter, and looks like both of his fish got beat today.
Zoom out.
Those are both Almacos.
Zoom out. Wow. No, they're not. No, they're not. Those are, I was like, that's a huge Almaco. I was like, wait a second, I've never. Where did they catch a 30-pound Almaco? Didn't you have a big Almaco last year? What was it? Was it 25? How big? That's awesome.
But yes,
Freaking me out now.
so great little app. You can go and see, while you're sitting out there in the harbor, you can find out whether your fish are going to qualify. You know which ones that you need to bring up to the dock.
Unless it's during the day, it's not 5 to 7, and you have a kid under.
Right.
Is it? You said 12 earlier. I thought it was 13.
Just 12.
Okay. So every kid on my boat's going to be 12 this year. No.
When do you weigh in? Like you were saying Miss Destin's gonna get there and actually.
So the scales, the question was what time is weigh-in? Weigh-ins are from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. But the prime time, if you want to be down there being a spectator, is between 4 and 7. That's when the majority of the activity is. So if you can get there
it's
a little
pretty-
earlier, you won't ever, most of the time, you won't have a super long wait. If you're in line and checked in with the dock master at 7, if you are 7:01, you are out.
But when we do this year, we've been following everybody that's in the past by 7, we'll follow the dock.
So Mark, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you said if you are going to be after 7, you can call in the past by 7. Okay.
Yep.
That's how it was. And then they would wait on like 3 or 4 boats on the last day of the.
Yeah.
I remember Halloween. I was watching because I didn't fish.
They called and they were in the past.
And it was like 6:58, and you could just see this line of boats, and there were a bunch of under 25 boats, and I was like, "Well, this is stupid. It's after 7. It's over."
It's never
I turned it
over
off
till it's over.
because there was a live feed online. I was like, I just shut the computer. I was like, I'm going to make a cocktail.
So this is one I want to pass these around. The hook, bait is one of our important things, and one of the next things is hooks. Learn to snell your hooks, and they must be snelled correctly. The one with the loop tied in it is snelled backwards.
Wrong.
The one with the other snell with the straight line, that is snelled correctly, and it's the way that the line goes through the eye of the hook. Pay close attention to this.
I mean, you can see that, and you're not going to be able to see it on camera or whatever, but when you set that hook or you pull up on it, you can see that hook turn in the right direction. I'm just going to go in my hand. And if you try the same thing on this, it obviously pulls the other direction, out of the fish. Sorry.
Yep, exactly.
Loop is wrong.
But that's one thing that I see people make mistakes on all the time, that it will make you lose. I won't say you lose every fish, but a lot of times you'll either miss the fish or the fish will come dehooked in the fight just simply by running the line through the eye of the hook backwards. So that's
I think
that's
a
kind of a key thing.
good habit to get in regardless of rodeo fishing or anything, but even on a Carolina rig in the bay for a redfish.
Yeah.
I mean, just that, especially pulling on the leader and seeing the direction of it. I show guys that almost every morning.
And, you know, learning to snell a hook, there again, you can come by the shop, any of the guys there at the shop can show you if you don't know how. There's a ton of YouTube videos, but it's super easy to snell a hook. It goes through the eye. We make a loop, start at the bend side and wrap towards the eye of the hook, about 6 wraps. Pull the little tag in. It happens just that fast. I mean, so learning to snell, you know, and you can, as the same way snelling the hook comes on the right way. I see a lot of people just tie a knot to the hook. The snell hook, the circle hook will still work with a knot tied to it, but it's designed to be snelled on. So a snell hook does work better.
Your snell knot's a lot easier than mine.
One interesting comment.
Yep.
Since we're fishing more and more people as you get bigger boats, one of the problems you have is you've got 3 or 4 guys down, and if somebody gets fouled with the other one, you need to know the procedure that the guy that really has got the fish on needs to fight that fish. Everybody else needs to lighten their line. Don't crank up. Don't, oh, I think I got a fish, because you're going to de-hook the guy. We have de-hooked fish before. Everybody knows it today, so we work very closely not to lose good fish.
Yep.
That's something that for those that aren't normally, if you got a small boat and fishing 1 or 2 people, you're not going to do it. But sometimes we got more on the deck fishing, and it becomes a real art to not de-hook.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
And that again goes back to
Yep. So if anybody couldn't hear Mike, what he was saying is if you have multiple anglers on the boat and one person is hooked up with a big fish and that fish makes a run up underneath the boat and gets tangled with somebody else, that other person that got tangled onto the person with the fish, they need to don't be pulling against that fish. Be mindful, keep the line where it's not going to tangle worse, but don't put pressure on it and let the person that has the fish on continue to fight the fish. If they're pulling this way and you pull this way, it'll cause that big fish to come off. So be mindful of that when you have multiple anglers on the boat and a big fish goes up underneath and tangles somebody up on the other side. We see that a lot.
A lot, especially with 4 people on a 21-foot boat. But I'm not afraid too. If you think it's a good fish, and normally, I mean, you guys know too, you can kind of tell what the fish is based on how he's fighting, and you kind of have to make that call. And I always kind of look over, and because I don't have too many rods on I take 13 out on each trip, but if I look over and he's got 3/4 of a spool, and it's a real bad tangle, I'm not afraid to cut it and let whoever fight that big fish. But that's always a heat of the moment decision that is tough. But I'd rather lose a little bit of line and untangle that and throw it in the bucket later than lose the fish.
And I wanted to bring one of these with me tonight, and we actually sold all the ones we had at the store. There's a local guy here in town that makes these. They're called cheater post. This is an item that will help you tremendously with big fish. It goes into the rod holder, and instead of you pulling up and fighting against the fish, all the charter boats use this or some version of it, but this goes in the rod holder, and you can actually lay the rod into it and just put downward pressure, and all you have to do is reel. You don't have to sit here and try to fight the fish. You can fight it off of this little cheater post. These are for anybody with a bad back like myself, or that just needs a little bit extra help fighting fish. It can make a tremendous difference, especially when we're fishing for larger fish. The only thing that you really have to remember It does put, and I don't know if I'm going to say this word right, fulcrum point. It must be laying on the grip of the rod. If you put the actual fiberglass rod and let it sit on that, you can break the rod really easy.
I mean, you wouldn't normally grab onto the glass part of the rod anyway,
Right.
with your hand. So,
But as long as you're making sure that it's laid on the foregrip, that will help you tremendously catching fish. But it's a great little invention. The top of it swivels, so if the fish goes this way, you know, it's not going to put the rod in a bind. It moves. Like I said, I really wanted to have one here, but we just happened to sell them all, and the guy that makes them here locally, he's going to bring us some more. They probably actually came today. But they're called cheater posts. It's just a great little item to have on your boat. I think they're about 80 bucks. It's all aluminum. The guy that makes them here in town, he brought them in the store probably, it's been at least 5 or 6 years ago. And he brought them in one day, and most everybody had made little 2x4 things that they had bolted onto their boats before this. And he brought these in, and I was like, man, that's really cool. I said, you got a patent on that? And he goes, nope. I says, I want to tell you something. Don't go show this to nobody else. Take it home. Go do your paperwork. Whenever you get it done, come back and see me, and I'll take them. But like I say, he's a local guy. I wanted to make sure if he'd have taken that into some of the big chain stores, they would have knocked it off. Most time R&D is for research and development, and in the tackle world, R&D stands for rip off and duplicate. And if I wouldn't have sent him home with them that day, I mean, they would have been in every chain store in the country would have had them. But that's a great little item for you to have. Want to talk to him about knives?
I saw a hand that looked familiar in there. The big thing for me is keeping them sharp. I mean, we'll fillet, I don't know, some days like the rodeo, especially rodeo days when we're mingo fishing, if you're going to catch a 5-pound mingo, I feel like you're going to have to go through 25 2 to 4-pound mingos on the way. So we go through a lot fast. And I think on my boat I have, 5 or 6 knives now? But I pretty much reach for the same one every day at the dock.
And one thing we want to do, we all want to catch fish to win the rodeo with, but then after that, we want to be able to go take all these fish home and eat them. And having a good fillet knife and learning how to use it.
And not cut your finger, Tim.
Yep. Well,
all over my cobia.
So
I could taste that.
Dexter makes a new knife, and jury's still out for me on it, but the bottom of the knife has just your regular knife, but the top part is serrated so that you can kind of fillet around the edges and stuff. That little serration on the top of it, it's a good little idea. It'll fillet your finger open in a heartbeat.
And we were filleting fish though on like a wooden dock after fishing offshore all day too, so I wouldn't blame the knife.
And we were in a hurry to get here because that was the last
Right before the
seminar,
seminar.
because we fished that day. Choosing a knife, how do you, I brought 3 of the most popular knives. This one's made by Victorinox. It's a Forstner is the kind of sub brand. This particular knife, we'll pass this one around. I sell more of this knife than every other knife in the store combined. But every brand, every size, add them together, this is the number one. Every deckhand in town owns this knife. Every guy who works in a fish house owns this knife. Now he may own this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, or this one and this same brand and a smaller one or a bigger one. Everybody owns this. This is the knife. I should have brought mine that's in the bed of my truck in my little tackle bag.
It doesn't even have that grip on it anymore.
No, well, mine was mine before this they had rosewood handles on them, and mine had cracked because I've had it since the 80s. It's wrapped with cord and dipped in fiberglass, and the knife is about at least 1/8 of an inch of it has been worn away from sharpening. They will last forever if you take care of them. But you know, there's kind of knives coming. There's kind of 3 knives here. There's the AFCO knife. This is the sharpest of the bunch. It's probably the easiest to sharpen. It is also the easiest to dull. Then the next grade is the Dexter knife. It's kind of a blend halfway in between. A little bit harder, holds an edge a little better, a little more difficult to sharpen. This knife will hold an edge longer. If you ever let it get super dull, it is a job to get the edge back on it. You know, if you know, you need to sharpen the knife every time you use it. The best thing, you know, we'll talk about gloves here in a minute, but a sharpening steel, this you should use before you clean fish every time and after you clean fish every time. Wash the knife, a few things on the steel, wash it again, put it away. That way it will stay sharp.
And that's easy. That's like, and you probably see chefs do that real fast before they cook things or whatever. That's a very quick process. I keep one of those in my boat bag.
If you let the knife get dull and you get some chips in it, you know, a whetstone is the next thing in line to bring the knife back. And then if you're lazy like myself, this is
that stone takes some work.
This is the Ken Onion Work Sharp electric sharpener. These things are worth every penny. Sharpen your knife, sharpen your scissors, lawnmower blades. This thing will sharpen anything. There's several restaurants here in town. A buddy of mine owns Fudpuckers, and they used to spend a couple $100s a month having their knives professionally sharpened. Well, I talked to him into buying one of these for home. They're about 200 bucks. Well, I sold him one for home use. He got rid of the knife sharpening people that came to the restaurant every month, put 2 or 3 of these in each one of his restaurants. They sharpen their own knives now. It's pretty simple, stupid. You just push the button. It's got little guides. You know, it's 10 strokes, 10 strokes, 2 strokes, 2 strokes. It's done.
Do you have one at your house?
Yeah.
Okay. You never told me that.
In my garage.
All right. Thanks. So I'll text all of you Tim's address later too.
I know where it is.
You know. Yeah, Nicole lives across the street. You know, and if you're super, super lazy, I see so many that we sell 1 million of these. It's called an AccuSharp. Man, it'll sharpen a knife in a hurry, does a good job. It eats a tremendous amount. I've had my Forstner knife for almost 30 years. I've never used an AccuSharp on it. You won't get 3 or 4 years out of one using that. You'll eat away the blade too fast, but it does do, it's inexpensive. They're about 12 bucks, and it will put a nice little edge on the knife.
It will.
But it does take a tremendous amount of the edge away. It eats a lot of material. I would buy a quality knife and learn how to sharpen it correctly.
I keep 2 of these on my boat that I reach for, and I also, just to throw in one other one, I use the serrated sword knife a lot too, especially on bigger fish, or especially if I'm cutting the throats out of something, because I can really, I don't want to say I'm not a very good filleter. Tim might say the opposite, but I like to use that serrated knife when I get near big bones or anything like that, because it'll just saw right through everything. Exactly, fish, yes, exactly. And Mark said it was good for triggerfish, which are basically made out of leather, and fish with a lot of scales. So, and I use a more of a flex knife when I'm doing smaller fish like mingos and stuff like that, and I like something with a little more backbone when I get in scaly fish, so he's right.
You know, having a good quality fillet glove is important, and you know, one of the main keys to not getting cut when you're filleting a fish is the the glove hand is the hand that holds the fish, and that's what that's for. The hand that, I don't like a glove on my knife hand, but you make sure that the knife hand never touches the fish. So I'm right-handed, I cut with my right hand, or fillet with my right hand, I pick everything up with my left hand. That's the glove hand. This hand never leaves the knife. If you'll keep your right hand from getting slimy, you won't get cut. You can tell, Mark does the same thing. That's taking off his fish cleaning table right there. But having a good quality fillet glove. And they make the little chainmail gloves and the little orange gloves. Most any of them will have enough protection. We've been talking a long time and we ain't covered a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think we need to do now? We don't have.
Tomorrow morning's fishing forecast.
How windy is it going to be?
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
I think it's going to be better. So the wind stopped today, blowing a little bit. It started getting a little bit nicer in the afternoon. I canceled this morning, but I'm planning to go tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. So I used a combination of multiple apps, and I got tired of looking at all of them. So I actually stole some code and put everything on my own website. So my company's 30A Light Tackle, and if you go to 30alighttackle.com/forecast, I have Windfinder mixed in. I've got the NOAA marine forecast, and I've got live webcams of high altitude views of the Gulf and the Bay. So I like to get on it in the morning and look at everything in one spot so I can see what to do. But the short answer to that, I use Windfinder for wave, and then I use a NOAA forecast. And just assume that around noon every day, the wind's gonna get more southerly than it is and get rougher. So I just try to get back into pass by 1 o'clock or so.
So it is showing, happens to be Windfinder, and it is showing tomorrow is supposed to be a lot better.
Well, that's a 2-second wave period. That didn't look very healthy.
I don't have a whole lot of service in here, but
There it comes.
Yeah. And when you first pull it up, it says under construction.
Because
But if you just keep scrolling down, you'll find the forecast on Mark's
that
page.
one there that I think a lot of people scroll by, that's the actual NOAA marine forecast, which helps a lot. But it'll take you into there because I didn't feel comfortable stealing straight off of NOAA. And they also blocked me from doing that. What does that say for tomorrow? Northeast 5 becoming 1 foot or less. Yeah, wave period 4 seconds.
Yeah.
But go back one. Actual 2.9, gust at 4. Scroll down a little more. That's Panama City. That's offshore, 5.87. And then click on that one, the second thumbnail. Go down to the beach one, the big green one. That's my favorite view of the Gulf, especially from where we live. So if this will load, whether or not based on service, for me, that's my favorite view to look at if the sun's up, because you can see far enough off into the background for what the water's actually doing. But it's probably dark out now that we're doing it.
It's nighttime.
Let's see.
Yeah, and I don't have enough service in here to get that.
But I just liked it all in one spot so that I wouldn't have to download 12 apps and go through everything. Say again? There's a mix. There's like 15 different webcams on there that I have borrowed from people. Legendary's got a really good bay cam too. I try to look at your charts on it every now and then.
So let's talk about split screen and stuff for just a little bit, and then, if anybody's got any questions, we'll do that. But so much of the area out here that we fish, if you strictly rely on the public numbers or big wrecks, you're not going to catch. Those places get hit a lot. And there's a lot of times when I think people, this is a little section of natural bottom. Well, this is in 200 or 300 foot of, no, this was in 210. But when you come across this, it doesn't have a tremendous amount of show right here. And I feel like that most people will drive right by this. Well, splitting your screen to where you got one side that's showing all 200 feet and this side's showing the bottom 30 feet, you get a lot different view of this on this side. Well, if you've ever fished on a charter boat and you pull up on a spot and your captain goes, he'll tell you in so many words if it's natural bottom or a wreck. If he says, drop it to the bottom and come up 3 cranks and you got to get my bite going, he just told you he's fishing natural bottom. If he said, drop it to the bottom, come up 20 cranks, he's fishing a wreck. Because now the fish are suspended up above it. But on natural bottom, the fish, when you first pull up there, you may not have a tremendous show of fish there. And it's because they're up underneath the little ledges and the rocks and underneath the coral heads and stuff. But 10 minutes after you've been there, exact same spot, didn't change spots. Now look at the bottom. You start dropping baits down there and everybody comes out of hiding. And so many times I can drive right behind somebody where they went and looked at a spot and I go look at the same spot and they drove off and I pull up behind them and catch fish. Because they saw that and didn't stop. But I stopped there and fished and 10 minutes later it turned into that. So learning to use your equipment and learning to use the split screen function. And Mark just got this new boat right here, and he did something on his that I thought was really cool that I actually didn't know you could do. You know, because we've always said, you know, make sure you buy a boat that has, you know, or if you only have a single GPS unit, make sure you get a second one so you can run navigation on one side and the sonar on the other. On the new GPSs with a lot of the new updates, you can actually do, instead of split screens, you can do triple screens on one unit, but they start getting really small. But Mark was able to make the sonar show up on the C7 unit that's for the motors.
Yeah, if you have a CL7 and you're getting engine data on, or a CL5, if you have that little chart that shows your engine data, that means it's probably on a NEMA 2000 network, and you can get all your sonar and charts also on that too.
So it works as basically as a separate GPS unit.
Yes, and like on Josh's boat, which is a 295, you've got your charts, and then he's got his CL5 upstairs. That will do the same thing also. Right.
But I thought that was really cool that you could make that do that.
And it helps a lot, because one thing that we do a lot when we fish together, excuse me, I'm normally driving the boat. Tim's just sitting there enjoying his coffee or whatever. Excuse me.
You all right there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm just so excited about the rodeo. It really helps a lot when somebody's looking at that sonar, especially with a excuse me, a through-hole transducer running 30 miles or whatever an hour across the bay or the Gulf. If somebody's staring at that transducer and notices something little like that, or a ball of bait or something, it's definitely worthwhile. Thank you. Worthwhile to turn around and look at it. So often I'm running fast. I'm trying not to get everybody soaking wet on the boat. And Tim's like, hey. And he'll mark it and say, let's turn around and go look at that. And then all of a sudden I found like Mark Luciani's new favorite honey hole or something like that.
So here's another good example of this split screen. And you look at this section of bottom right here. This is out here in 300 feet of water. And if you're not zoomed into the bottom, you come across that, you don't see much at all. You look at the bottom 30 feet, and that picture just changed a lot.
It's 30 feet of relief.
But it doesn't look like much if you're looking at the whole 300 foot. I guarantee you people will drive right by that and not even know it's there. that's a little section of bottom we call the 750 bottom or the Christmas trees. That's down the, you know, it lights up like a Christmas tree is where it got that nickname. That is a long way down there. That's about 70 miles to where that's, but it's just, and it runs off, it's a ledge that runs for 15 miles and there's 100 of those on it.
Let me ask you this. Do you notice a correlation between the size of the spot and the size of the fish?
If my answer was yes, that the smaller the place, the bigger the fish. The bigger the place, typically the smaller the fish.
That's what I agree.
You go to the Liberty ship and every snapper is this big. You go over to a piece of natural bottom that has a rock the size of that table and there's some snappers like that.
I wonder if that's a result of not as many people fishing it.
Probably.
I personally like to go try to fish really small spots. And it's frustrating because I think it's frustrating for people on my boat because we'll get close and I'll say, hey, we're here. And everyone grabs their rod and they're all ready to go. And I'll drive figure eights around it until I park exactly where I want to. And they're just like, and I think Kayla will tell you too, she won't get seasick until I get to a spot and I'm driving circles around, rocking the boat around looking for it. But I tell everybody, I'm like, let me get where I want to because the fishing will be a lot easier and better. But that's how small some of these things are that we go to.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say one more thing about setting up on spots. You know, when you most all of us are using trolling motors or Helmmaster or something, you know, the first spot you come to every day, we don't know which way the current's gonna go. So if this was a spot, you know, you want to pull up to the spot, the first one, and the boat's going to, either the wind or the current or the swell is going to drift you off one direction or the other. It'll take you away. Then, now we know, okay, I set up like this, but I need to be set up like this. So the next time you pull up to it, make sure that you're pulling up that way. And then when you go from spot to spot to spot, you know, if you pull up and you just go straight to the spot and hit your spot lock, it's going to sit there and try to keep you there. But if it doesn't find it within the first few minutes, they'll time out and you'll start to drift off.
Which is sometimes good because, especially right now, if you guys have been out fishing, there's so much current. I mean, that water is moving. So sometimes those fish are up current of the structure. Sometimes they're 500 yards off. Especially, I feel like during snapper season this year, may have been directly during that snapper spawn, and a lot of those big snappers were way down current of the spot. Yes, sir.
Do you have a split screen like that? Do you have a bottom lock on the one on the left?
Yeah.
Have you set up one as a 50 megahertz or 200 hertz screen or the same?
I run, the question was on a split screen, split zoom sonar setup. Are we running different frequencies? Normally the frequencies changing, I'll run the same frequency, like say I'm running chirp, but it just helps me understand what's going on. I also turn on a scope on mine so I can see what's actually happening underneath us, which eats up a little bit of your screen, but it helps, especially when I'm showing guys like, look at how many fish are underneath the boat, and they're like, well, how does this make sense? I'm like, well, this little column is what's under the boat. But I run chirp on mine, and on split zoom, I just keep it all on chirp. I've tried experimenting with a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes I like one thing better than another, but just day in and day out, I just keep it the same. The more I stare at it, the more it makes sense. I'm like that guy in the Matrix with like the code going by, and I'm like, oh, everybody real fast now. Well, should we just let them ask questions?
Yeah. Well, if y'all got any questions, we've been here for a long time.
Tim and I could talk for 4 hours about whatever, and I haven't even gotten started, so don't even let me.
Yeah.
What do you guys want to know about?
Can you elaborate a little more on when the guy over there was asking about gutting fish?
for the rodeo? I kind of got lost in that discussion.
So the fish, every fish that weighs in, with the exception of like 4 of them, have to be gutted and weighed in there. So there's a way to do it, and if you haven't gutted a fish before, it can be pretty gross. But basically, like, you get him with a knife on his, right next to his anal vent, and run it up. And you run it up pretty far, so you'll get to the pec fins, and then if you go a little bit farther past the pec fins, and it'll stop at the pec fins, and you just kind of pop it through, and then it's really a matter of, for me, the easiest thing to do is just stick my hand in there and scoop everything out and throw it over. So it's just a big cavity. But I think too, in preparation of food and processing food, I think, like, we do a lot of that on certain foods. Like, we do a thing on the boat called ikejime, which is a way to kill, wire, then gut and prepare this fish for whether you're going to dry age it or whatever you're going to do to it. But gutting, it's just kind of a habit you get into of gutting it.
I think there's probably something simple I'm missing here. Is earlier you were talking about netting the fish versus gaffing it, wanting to have as much weight, but you're also talking about gutting the fish before weighing it.
So,
Right. It's a rule in the rodeo.
Okay.
So when you gaff it, you'll lose a lot of blood in the muscle. If you gut it immediately and take that heart out, to word it differently, if you cut the gill, for instance, or if you gaff it somehow, the heart will keep pumping and it'll pump all the blood out of the body, and you lose a ton of weight of that fish. But also, I think that makes the meat taste a little bit better. So especially on king mackerel or something like that, or especially tuna, or even bonita, if you were going to try that, to cut the gill and let the heart keep pumping all the blood out, that fish will get a lot lighter. But I think getting all that red meat out of it makes it taste a lot better too.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's crazy if you do have a tuna and cut the gills and cut the artery in the tail and stand that thing up in a bucket, it'll fill the bucket up with blood. There's a lot. There's probably more than some people probably. No, you're fishermen, whatever. You probably like it too. Not like it, but every now and then I get a kid on the boat who's like, "Ooh, look at the blood. Can I touch that?" And I'm like, keeping an eye on you. So. Who would
Don't
do
have
that?
your outriggers up.
Who would keep their outriggers open to pull into a dock?
Okay, you'll hear it.
So we got some cool hats to give
Yeah,
away.
here we go.
Are we doing some of these too or something? Okay.
All right. Well, that's fun.
So somebody's gonna do this,
All right.
this.
Kayla, are you doing it? Would you like to be the guest picker? The guest picker?
It's like the Vanna White.
I was going to say more like Lee Corso with the headgear.
I'm gonna say
So what are we doing it for?
Kayla. No. Okay. All right. So what are we gonna do it for first? All right. Let's go. Is all of this the hats?
The hats.
The hats?
and those.
Wow.
All right. All right. So for the first one, let's do this set first, guys. Mark, you're not including this. Actually, James Scott.
Go ahead and just take mine out.
Could I borrow these?
Is out of there. All right. Now let me spin it again.
Text me pictures of the UPCs
Okay.
because I got to take them out of stock.
Okay. Just like I'm good with these if you don't care.
Oh, good job.
Okay.
Here you go.
Is that going on your boat or my boat?